Hello, and welcome to Beyond Earth Stories. This is the place where we journey through time itself, where we follow the threads of Earth's long history, and where we imagine what it means to be part of this vast, unfolding story. If you enjoy this kind of storytelling, please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapters of our shared exploration. Now let us begin. When I close my eyes and imagine the beginning of Earth, there is no soft light, no blue sky, no green forest. There is only chaos. The universe itself is still young, born from an explosion of unimaginable energy. The Big Bang. Galaxies are spinning into being. Stars are igniting in clouds of dust and gas. And among these stars, something stirs that will one day become our home. The sun was not always the warm companion we know. It was once a newborn star pulling matter toward itself, its gravity tugging on gas and dust left over from its birth. Around it, in a swirling disk of cosmic debris, fragments collided, clumped together and shattered apart again. I picture myself drifting through this early solar system, asteroids spinning fireballs, crashing worlds half-formed and unstable. The sound would be deafening if space could carry sound explosions of rock bursts of plasma, a chaos of birth. And then, among those swirling fragments, Earth began to take shape. At first, it was nothing more than a ball of molten rock, glowing red from heat, its surface boiling with lava, its skies choked with smoke and ash. Meteors pelted it, endlessly, each impact reshaping its surface, each collision a violent reminder that creation is not gentle. I imagine standing there, though, no one could feeling the ground tremble beneath constant bombardment, the air unbreathable, the sky a storm of fire. It was in this crucible that Earth's story truly began. Slowly, as millions of years passed, the bombardment lessened. The planet cooled its surface, hardened into crust. Volcanoes erupted, spewing gases that formed a primitive atmosphere. There was no oxygen, yet no blue sky, only carbon dioxide, methane, nitrogen, an alien world deadly to the life we know today. But even in that toxicity, the seeds of life's possibility were being sown. Water arrived, carried by icy comets crashing into the young Earth and by steam rising from its own molten depths. At first, the planet hissed and steamed, boiling seas, evaporating into storm-filled skies. Rain fell again and again for thousands of years, until the surface filled with oceans. Imagine standing on a rocky shore, watching black clouds roll endlessly, lightning tearing the sky, rain lashing down in torrents. And beneath that storm, pools of water gathered, the first oceans taking form. These oceans were not calm or blue as we know them. They were dark, heavy with minerals, bubbling with volcanic heat. But they were a cauldron of potential chemistry set on a planetary scale. Lightning flashed above, striking into these waters, breaking apart molecules, recombining them in countless ways. In those chemical dances, something miraculous happened. Molecules linked into chains, chains folded into structures, structures began to copy themselves. And from that life, fragile, microscopic but alive emerged. It is hard to imagine, but somewhere in those bubbling seas, a single cell formed. A bubble of molecules surrounded by a membrane capable of taking in energy, capable of dividing, capable of becoming two. I lean close in my imagination, peering into that droplet, watching it quiver and split. It seems so small, so insignificant. And yet, it is the ancestor of every tree, every bird, every human who will ever live. From that single step, all of history flows. But this was not an easy beginning. The young Earth was still hostile. The sun flared unpredictably, bombarding the planet with radiation. Asteroids still struck from time to time, boiling oceans, shattering landscapes. Life clung on, hidden in deep waters, in cracks of rock, in places shielded from destruction. For millions of years, these tiny organisms were the only inhabitants of Earth, unseen, unheard, but slowly, patiently multiplying. I imagine floating above the planet then. From space, Earth looked different, darker, quieter. No green, no blue sky. The oceans were gray, the land barren, the clouds thick with storms. And yet, beneath that surface, life stirred. It is a humbling image, a world that seems dead, carrying within it the beginnings of everything to come. As time passed, the planet stabilized. The bombardments lessened the atmosphere, thickened the oceans, deepened. And those tiny cells, through trial and error, began to change. Some learned to capture sunlight to turn energy from the sun into fuel. They released a byproduct, oxygen. At first, it poisoned the world, killing many organisms. But over time, it transformed the atmosphere, turning the skies blue, filling the air with breath. The stage was being set for larger, more complex life. When I picture this, I think of how fragile beginnings can be, how unlikely it seems that molecules would become cells, that cells would survive storms and impacts, that they would learn to use sunlight. And yet, it happened. We are here because it happened. Against all odds, Earth's chaos gave birth to order, and order gave birth to life. Standing at this threshold of history, I feel a sense of awe. The Earth began in fire and fury, in violence and destruction. And yet, from that violence, beauty emerged. From molten rock came oceans. From toxic gases came breathable air. From chaos came the first whisper of life. It is a reminder, perhaps, that creation is never simple, never easy. It is born of struggle, of chance, of resilience. And as I look forward, I know this is only the beginning. The Earth, now clothed in oceans and skies, carrying the first fragile cells, is ready for what comes next. The journey from chaos to life has begun, and it will carry us through billions of years, through unimaginable transformations, through rise and fall, through extinction and rebirth. We are part of that story. We are its continuation. And as we take our first step into it here in the chaos of Earth's beginning, I invite you to walk with me through all that follows, through seas and forests, through empires and machines, through stars and futures yet unseen. This is the story of Earth, and it begins here in fire, in water, in chaos. The Earth's beginning was not only a tale of rock and fire, it was also a tale of collisions so vast, so violent, that they shaped everything we know today. Among them, one stands above all, the impact that gave us our moon. In those early days, Earth had barely solidified when another body, perhaps the size of Mars, slammed into it. The collision was cataclysmic. I imagine the shock waves shattering the crust, the air glowing white with heat, oceans of molten rock spraying into space. For a time, Earth itself may have melted again. Its surface turned to a global sea of fire. From the debris hurled outward, a ring of rock formed around the planet, glowing red, circling like Saturn's rings. And slowly, those fragments clumped together, pulling tighter and tighter until they became the moon. Even now, when I look up at the night sky and see the moon's pale glow, I think of that ancient collision. It is not just a companion, it is a scar, a reminder of how violent creation can be. And yet, without it, Earth would not be the same. The moon steadies our planet's tilt, giving us seasons. It tugs at our oceans, giving us tides. It lights the night. In the chaos of destruction, something essential was born. After the moon's birth, Earth entered a restless adolescence. Its crust shifted constantly, torn open by volcanoes. Lava poured into the seas, steam filled the skies, and the air itself was toxic, a haze of methane, carbon dioxide, ammonia, and nitrogen. The skies were likely orange or even greenish, heavy with chemical smog. Imagine standing on a cliff then, the horizon dimmed the sun, a faint red disk through poisonous clouds, lightning constantly splitting the sky, rain falling in acid torrents. But hidden in that harshness was possibility. Those very chemicals so deadly to us now were the ingredients of life. Ammonia, methane, water energy. They clashed in storms sparked by lightning, heated by volcanoes. Experiments done billions of years later in laboratories would prove that such conditions can spontaneously form amino acids, the building blocks of proteins. It is astonishing the Earth itself was a vast chemistry lab, endlessly stirring, endlessly testing, until something living appeared. The oceans, meanwhile, grew deeper. Water had come not only from within volcanic steam, but from beyond. Countless icy comets and asteroids had bombarded the Earth, their frozen hearts melting into rivers and seas. At first, the oceans boiled under the heat of impacts, but as the planet cooled, they stabilized. By about 4 billion years ago, vast stretches of ocean covered the surface, broken by volcanic islands. These oceans were unlike the blue seas we know. They were thick with dissolved metals, greenish or reddish, from iron steaming near vents where the crust split open. Around those hydrothermal vents, where superheated water gushed from the deep earth, rich chemical soups formed. Black smokers belched clouds of minerals into the sea. Here in darkness, lit only by the faint glow of hot minerals, life may have taken root. I imagine diving into those primordial seas, drifting near a vent. The water shimmers with heat, bubbles rising like ghostly strings. Chimneys of minerals tower above strange shapes forming on their surfaces. And in the cracks in the smallest pockets of shelter molecules, come together, cling to minerals, fold into structures. They replicate not perfectly, but enough to persist. The first whispers of life stir. It is easy to overlook how extraordinary this is. For billions of years, the universe had been filled with stars and rocks, gas and dust. And here, on this one small world, chemistry crossed an invisible threshold. Matter began to organize itself to seek energy to endure. Life began not as a roar, but as a whisper, a fragile cell dividing in a drop of water. These first cells were not like us. They were simple, without nuclei, without complexity. But they had two things that mattered: the ability to copy themselves and the ability to adapt. Every error in copying was a chance for something new, a mutation that might help them survive better. Slowly, painfully across millions of years, these cells became tougher, more varied, more capable. At first, Earth's atmosphere was hostile to them. Ultraviolet radiation poured down, unfiltered by an ozone layer. Asteroids still struck sometimes, boiling the seas, creating near-extinction events. But life found shelter. Some cells hid deep in the oceans. Others clung to mineral surfaces shielded from the sun. Some may have even survived inside ice, protected in frozen pockets until the climate shifted again. Through it all, life endured. And then, one lineage of tiny organisms discovered a trick that would change the world forever: photosynthesis. By capturing sunlight and using it to split water, they released oxygen into the atmosphere. At first, oxygen was deadly, a toxin to many forms of life. It rusted iron in the seas, turning them red. But eventually it built up in the air, transforming the atmosphere into something new, something we would one day breathe. When I picture that moment, I think of how strange it must have been, a world poisoned by its own life and yet enriched by it. The sky slowly turning blue, the oceans clearing the air, filling with breath. What began as destruction became the foundation of all complex life to come. So much of Earth's early story is like this: violence giving way to beauty, destruction leading to creation, chaos birthing order, the moon from a collision, oceans from comets, life from storms, oxygen from poison. Over and over, the pattern repeats, the universe breaking and remaking until something extraordinary emerges. If I stand back now in imagination and look at the Earth around 3.5 billion years ago, I see a strange but promising world. The continents are small volcanic islands scattered across vast seas. The skies are heavy with clouds, but patches of blue appear. The air smells sharp, metallic, tangy with gases. The oceans shimmer green, filled with microbes invisible to the eye, but covering every surface. In tide pools, mats of bacteria form slimy carpets, their colors vivid orange, purple, green. If I touch one, it feels alive, pulsing softly under my hand. This is not the Earth we know, but it is Earth becoming. The stage is set, the actors' tiny cells have taken their places. They will multiply, compete, evolve. They will build everything to come: forests, animals, civilizations, stories. From here, the path stretches forward, billions of years, twisting through triumphs and catastrophes. And it all began here in the chaos. When the rains finally ceased their endless pounding and the Earth's surface cooled enough to hold them, the oceans spread wide like mirrors of the sky. For the first time, the planet had basins deep and vast, filled with water, shimmering under a dim sun. I imagine standing at the edge of one of those newborn seas, the horizon stretching endlessly, the air still thick with strange gases, and waves rising and crashing with a rhythm older than memory. These oceans would become the cradles of everything to come. They were not oceans as we know them today. Their waters were heavy with dissolved iron minerals leached from volcanic rocks, gases bubbling from vents on the seafloor. They shimmered with hues of green and red, not the blue clarity we see now. Storms raged across their surfaces, lightning flashing, rain falling in torrents. The seas boiled near volcanic shores and froze near the poles. They were alive, not with fish or whales, but with chemistry, with possibilities. I walk along a shoreline in my imagination. The beach is not sand, but jagged black rock, sharp with cooled lava. Pools form in the cracks, warmed by the sun, thick with minerals. Each pool is like a tiny experiment, molecules colliding, linking, breaking, reforming. The air smells metallic sharp with sulfur and iron. And in those pools, something stirs. Molecules twist into spirals, chains fold membranes, form around droplets. In one of them, perhaps life is born. But even beyond the shore, the deep ocean holds secrets. On the seafloor, where the crust cracks and water seeps into molten rock, hydrothermal vents erupt. Superheated water gushes upward, rich with metals boiling, yet filled with nutrients. Around these vents, the dark water shimmers and strange chimneys of minerals rise like towers. I drift closer in imagination and I see small structures forming on their surfaces, tiny cells clinging, dividing, surviving in heat and pressure that would kill almost anything today. It is here many scientists believe that life may have truly found its foothold. Protected from the violent storms above, shielded from ultraviolet radiation by the deep ocean, nurtured by a steady supply of energy, these early microbes began to multiply. They fed on chemicals on hydrogen and sulfur, slowly building networks of metabolism, creating energy in ways we can barely comprehend. These first oceans were not silent. They bubbled, hissed, steamed. Lightning struck their surfaces. Meteors splashed into their depths. Volcanoes poured rivers of lava that hissed and cracked on contact. Yet, beneath that chaos, life began to spread. Microbes clung to rocks, floated in currents, drifted with tides. They were invisible to the eye, yet they covered the world. I imagine dipping my hands into those waters. They feel thick, heavy with minerals, warm near volcanic shores, cold in the depths. If I could peer close enough, I would see billions of tiny cells swirling, copying, dividing. They do not think, do not feel, and yet they are alive. They are the foundation. Time passes millions of years, then hundreds of millions. The oceans slowly stabilize. The chemistry of the atmosphere changes as microbes feed and exhale. Some discover photosynthesis, learning to use sunlight as energy. With each breath, they release oxygen, a gas that begins to accumulate in the oceans. At first, it reacts with iron, rusting the seas red. Then it begins to fill the air. Slowly the skies turn blue, the seas clear. The world begins to look more like home. But I remind myself this was not quick. It took billions of years for oxygen to truly change the world. For long ages, the oceans remained ruled by microbes. Stromatolites, layered mats of bacteria spread across shallow seas, building reefs of stone. I picture walking along a coast lined with them, strange domes rising from the water. Slimy and colorful, alive with billions of tiny organisms. They breathe, they photosynthesize, they change the air itself. The oceans became laboratories of evolution. Every drop held countless experiments, mutations, variations, trials of survival. Most failed. Some endured. Slowly, cells became more complex. nuclei formed protecting DNA. Organelles emerged, tiny engines of energy. These were the first eukaryotes, ancestors of plants, animals, fungi. They were still microscopic, but they were more than bacteria. They were steps toward complexity. I imagine swimming through those ancient seas, drifting among colonies of microbes, past mats of stromatolites into deeper waters. The light fades, colors shift until only darkness remains. In the black depths, vents glow faintly, and creatures cling to them. They are small, strange, but alive. Even here in the most inhospitable places, life finds a way. And as life shaped the oceans shaped life. Currents carried microbes across the globe, mixing them, spreading them. Tides rose and fell, driven by the moon, creating cycles of rhythm that would one day shape all living things. The oceans became both cradle and teacher, offering both shelter and challenge. When I look at the seas today, filled with whales and corals and fish, I think of how they began empty, but for microbes thick with iron, lit only by lightning and vents. And yet from that emptiness, everything came. Every forest, every bird, every human, every thought we think began in those waters. The first oceans were not just places of water. They were the stage on which life began its play. And as the curtain rose, the actors' tiny cells took their places, ready for the drama to unfold. This is the power of oceans, to hold beginnings, to carry possibilities, to nurture the fragile spark of life. And from those first waves, the story would only grow more complex. The oceans had spread wide and deep, restless with storms, thick with minerals, bubbling with heat. In their endless motion, they became more than water. They became a canvas, a place where chemistry tried itself again and again, until one day, chemistry became life. It is here in this mysterious crossing that I find myself imagining the very first stirrings of what would one day be every living thing. At first, there were only molecules, simple repeating, swirling in tide pools and deep sea vents. Carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, sulfur, phosphorus, 6 letters of nature's alphabet. They collided endlessly, pulled apart, reassembled. Most combinations failed, breaking apart as quickly as they formed. But in that endless dance, some chains endured. Some found stability. Some began to carry information, however small. I imagine kneeling beside a shallow pool warmed by volcanic rock. The water shimmers with oil-like films on its surface, the scent sharp and metallic. Lightning splits the sky, its energy striking the pool, rearranging molecules. In the ripples, strands form spirals of RNA, fragile but capable of copying themselves. I lean closer and see one strand fold into a shape that helps another form faster. The first cooperation, the first spark of something more than chance. This was not life as we know it. These were molecules only beginning to resemble the patterns of life. Yet, the difference between lifeless chemistry and living biology is a subtle threshold. Once crossed, everything changes. Molecules no longer just exist, they persist, they compete, they evolve. The earliest self-replicating molecules may have been RNA strands that could both store information and catalyze reactions. In a sense, they were both book and tool, blueprint and builder. I picture them coiling and uncoiling in warm pools, copying themselves imperfectly. Some copies were weaker, some stronger. The stronger ones lasted longer, spread wider. Natural selection had begun, not yet with cells, not yet with creatures, but with molecules. Over millions of years, those fragile chains grew more sophisticated. Some became enclosed within membranes, tiny bubbles, formed from lipids in the water. These bubbles trapped molecules inside, protecting them from the chaos outside. Within their fragile walls, the first protocells were born. I imagine holding one in my hand, a droplet so small it is invisible, and yet carrying within it the secret of all futures. These protocells learned to use energy. Some drew it from chemical gradients near vents, others from reactions in sunlight. They were primitive engines, but they worked. Slowly, these engines became more efficient, fueling growth, division, replication. The oceans filled with them, invisible, but countless. For billions of years, they ruled the earth, unseen monarchs of the microscopic world. Life in these early stages was fragile. One mistake, one shift in temperature, one storm could have erased it, and yet it endured. It is astonishing to think that out of so many failures, one lineage of molecules found a way to survive, to thrive, to spread. That lineage is us. I imagine floating in those ancient seas, the water around me filled with life too small to see. If I scoop a handful, billions of cells swirl in it, each carrying tiny instructions written in molecular code. That code, DNA, emerges over time, a refinement of RNA's fragile script. DNA is more stable, more reliable. It becomes the library of life-storing instructions that can be copied again and again across generations. The invention of DNA was a revolution. With it came stability, the ability to build more complex proteins to pass on traits with greater accuracy. Life's story became not just survival in the moment, but inheritance across time. Each cell carried a record of its ancestors, and each generation built upon that record. I imagine looking into one of these cells with a magnifying glass of the mind. Inside, DNA coils like a tiny thread. Proteins fold into machines. Membranes pump ions. Energy flows in cycles. It is a city in miniature humming with activity. And yet, it is only one cell. Multiply it by trillions upon trillions, and the oceans become alive. These first microbes began to change the planet itself. Feeding on chemicals, exhaling gases, they reshaped the atmosphere. Some discovered photosynthesis, capturing sunlight, splitting water, releasing oxygen. At first, oxygen was toxic to many. I imagine the seas turning rusty red as iron oxidized clouds of minerals sinking to the seafloor. It was called the Great Oxidation Event, a catastrophe for some, an opportunity for others. From it, new life forms arose, adapted to oxygen breathing, it using it to release more energy than ever before. That energy opened the door to complexity. Cells grew larger, their inner machinery more sophisticated. Some engulfed others, forming partnerships. A bacterium swallowed another, but instead of digesting it, they cooperated. One provided energy, the other protection. From that partnership, mitochondria were born, tiny power plants within cells. This moment, invisible and humble, would make possible all complex life. I stand at the edge of those oceans in my imagination and feel the weight of time. Billions of years pass in silence with nothing but microbes dividing, evolving, spreading. The land is still barren, the skies strange, the seas full of life too small to see. But beneath that simplicity, something extraordinary is unfolding. The building blocks of every plant, every animal, every human are being forged. I think about how fragile and yet inevitable it seems. Fragile because so much could have gone wrong. Inevitable because once life began, it had only one direction forward. Adapt, change, persist. That is the heartbeat of life, from the first molecules to us. And so the Mam Song Bansur, the first seeds of life, took root in the oceans. They learned to copy, to breathe, to cooperate, to innovate. They turned chaos into order, sunlight into food, poison into breath. They were invisible, but they were unstoppable. As I step back in imagination and look at the Earth from space, I see a planet transformed. Oceans swirl with green, filled with microbial blooms. The skies turn blue with oxygen. The land waits empty but ready. The stage is set for something greater. From these beginnings, the story will grow vast. But it is here, in the quiet persistence of cells, in the hidden brilliance of molecules, that it all begins. Life has found its foothold, and it will never let go. The oceans were no longer empty. They shimmered with invisible life cells, dividing endlessly, each one carrying whispers of survival. For billions of years, these tiny creatures were the rulers of Earth. No forests, no animals, no towering dinosaurs, only microbes unseen to the naked eye, yet powerful enough to change the face of the planet itself. When I drift through those ancient seas in my imagination, I see not silence, but abundance. Mats of microbes cling to rocks in shallow waters, forming stromatolites, layer upon layer of living stone. From afar, they look like strange mounds, rounded like loaves of bread, but inside billions of bacteria thrive. Their colors are vivid greens, purples, oranges, each layer feeding on light in its own way. If I touch them, they feel slimy alive, pulsing with unseen energy. It is here that cyanobacteria, the ancient blue-green algae, begin their quiet revolution. They take in sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide, and they release something unexpected: oxygen. At first, it is only a trace lost in the oceans, heavy with iron. But slowly, it builds. Iron rusts, settling as red layers on the seafloor. The oceans change color. The air begins to hold something new. I imagine the moment oxygen first touched the sky. For billions of years, the air had been suffocating methane, carbon dioxide, nitrogen. Now, invisible molecules of oxygen drift upward, fragile but persistent. The skies slowly change, turning blue. The seas clear. And with them, the fate of Earth changes forever. This was not a gentle shift. Oxygen was toxic to many early microbes. Whole lineages perished in what we call today the Great Oxidation Event. For life, it was both catastrophe and opportunity. Those who adapted learned to breathe oxygen, using it to release far more energy than ever before. With that energy, they could grow larger, more complex, more capable. What killed some became the gift of power to others. I walk along a shallow lagoon in my imagination. The water sparkles in sunlight, stromatolites rise like silent sentinels, and the air smells faintly sharp with oxygen. Dragonflies, fish, and forests do not yet exist, but the foundation for them has been laid. Every breath they will take begins here in the unseen work of microbes. For billions of years, microbes refine their craft. They spread across every corner of the earth, in hot springs boiling with heat, in frozen lakes, in salty lagoons, in deep ocean vents. They were masters of adaptation. Where there was energy, they found a way to live. Some consumed sulfur, others nitrogen, others iron. The diversity was staggering, though invisible. These microbial worlds were not static. They built ecosystems, small, intricate webs of feeding and recycling. One microbe's waste became another's food. Together, they created balance, turning lifeless chemicals into cycles of life. I picture a droplet of water under a magnifying glass. Inside, dozens of species of microbes swirl, feeding, dividing, dying, feeding others. It is a complete world in miniature. Time passes in vast stretches. 2 billion years, then more. The Earth remains a microbial planet. From space it looks familiar now. Blue oceans, white clouds, brown continents forming. But on the ground, life is still too small to see. Only the stromatolites mark the surface, their layered shapes growing slowly over centuries. They are monuments of patience, built by countless generations of bacteria. And then, quietly, complexity takes another step. Some microbes begin to join forces in radical ways. One engulfs another, not as prey, but as partner. The swallowed microbe becomes a mitochondrion, a powerhouse within the cell. Another partnership forms chloroplasts, factories of photosynthesis. These acts of cooperation create eukaryote cells. It's far larger and more versatile than any before. I imagine peering into a tide pool where these new cells swim. They are still invisible to my naked eye, but under an imaginary lens, they appear spheres within spheres, nuclei glowing faintly, organelles whirring with energy. They move with purpose, faster, stronger, hungrier. The age of microbes is shifting towards something greater. Yet even as eukaryotes appear, microbes remain the backbone of Earth. They continue to dominate in numbers, in diversity, in resilience. Even today, billions of years later, microbes outnumber every other form of life. They are in the soil, the air, the oceans, even within our bodies. They are the ancient rulers, never dethroned, only joined by others. As I step back in imagination and look at the planet during this age, I see a world in transition. Oxygen fills the air. The skies turn bright. The seas shimmer clear. Continents drift slowly. Mountains rise and crumble. Beneath it all, microbes continue their work, tireless, invisible, unstoppable. What humbles me most is their patience. For 2 billion years, nothing larger than a microbe existed. No forests, no fish, no insects, no mammals. Only single-celled life, perfecting itself in endless experiments. Every future creature depended on this long, invisible age. Without microbes, there would be no us. And so the rise of microbes was more than survival. It was the writing of the first true chapter of life. They transformed the planet, turning poison into breath, chaos into cycles, stillness into growth. They showed that even the smallest can change everything. Standing at this point in the journey, I feel a sense of wonder. The earth, once barren, is now alive. Not yet with creatures I can see, but with oceans of invisible life working silently, shaping a future they will never know. The stage is set for an explosion of diversity. For from these microbes, from their patience and persistence, will come the first multicellular beings, the first creatures that crawl, swim, and fly. But before that, the seas will bloom in ways the world has never seen. And all of it begins here, with the quiet, relentless rise of microbes. The oceans had long been ruled by the smallest of lives. Cells drifting in endless currents, feeding, dividing, reshaping the air itself. For billions of years, this microscopic reign endured patient and steady. But change is the heartbeat of Earth, and slowly something new began to stir. Cells that had lived alone started to join together, forming alliances, weaving themselves into something greater than the sum of their parts. This was the next great step, the dawn of multicellular life. When I imagine that moment, I picture a tide pool at dusk, its waters glowing faintly in the fading light. Tiny cells cluster together, drawn not only by chance, but by the possibilities of cooperation. At first, it is simple groups of cells sticking side by side, sharing nutrients, offering each other shelter. But over time, some begin to specialize. One cell might take in energy, another might hold structure, another might reproduce. Slowly, a body begins to take shape, not one cell, but many, working as one. This shift was not quick, nor was it certain. For millions of years, cells experimented with cooperation, sometimes succeeding, sometimes failing. But eventually, the pattern held. Multicellular organisms began to thrive, their bodies more complex, their possibilities endless. I drift through those early seas in my imagination and see strange forms rising. Filaments of algae stretch upward like tiny threads, capturing sunlight more efficiently. Flat sheets of cells spread across rocks, their surfaces rippling with movement. Tiny spheres roll and twist in the water, each cell within them playing its role. They are not plants, not animals, not fungi, not yet, but they are the ancestors of all of them. What fascinates me is how cooperation itself became an engine of evolution. Alone, a single cell could survive, but together cells could build bodies larger than predators, stronger than currents, more efficient in feeding. They could move in new ways, sense their surroundings more sharply, adapt more quickly. Multicellularity was not just a change in form, it was a change in destiny. The oceans once ruled only by the invisible began to bloom with shapes. Sheets of green algae swayed in currents. Simple sponges clung to rocks, filtering water for food. Jelly-like creatures drifted, their bodies soft and translucent, pulsing gently in the tides. They were humble beginnings, but they marked the first visible signs of life. I imagine swimming through those seas, surrounded not by fish or whales, but by forests of algae and fields of simple animals. They do not roar or hunt or build, but they live, they grow, they reproduce. The silence of the oceans is broken not by sound, but by movement, by the endless rhythm of new forms taking shape. Yet every step forward was fragile. The Earth's climate shifted wildly. Ice ages gripped the planet, continents drifted and collided. Entire lineages vanished, others took their place. Evolution is never a straight line, it is a web, a branching, twisting experiment. Most branches end in silence. A few continue forward. Among these branches came one of the most remarkable innovations, sex. Before life had divided, simply one cell becoming two, two becoming four. It was efficient, but limited. With sexual reproduction, genes could mix, reshuffle, create endless combinations. Variation exploded, and with it, the pace of evolution quickened. Life gained the ability to adapt faster than ever before. I picture a shallow reef under ancient sunlight. Simple animals cling to the rocks. Algae carpet, the floor jelly-like forms drift by. Hidden within them, genes shuffle, recombine, create offspring unlike their parents. The diversity grows richer, the oceans more crowded. Each generation carries new possibilities. And then, in time, true animals emerge. Soft-bodied creatures crawl along the seabed, their bodies segmented, their movements deliberate. Tiny predators appear, feeding on others, driving the first arms race of nature. Armor evolves, shells, spines, defenses against attack. Senses sharpen light, becomes vision vibrations, becomes sound chemicals, becomes smell. For the first time, life is not only surviving, it is competing, struggling, innovating. This was the great threshold leading to the Cambrian explosion, when life would erupt in astonishing diversity. But even before that burst, the groundwork was being laid here in these early steps. Cooperation of cells, specialization of roles, the mixing of genes, the rise of predators and prey, all the rules of life's drama were being written in these ancient seas. I imagine myself sitting on a rocky shore, watching waves lap against the land. In the water forms, move that no one has ever seen before, creatures without names, without descendants, their bodies strange and fleeting. Some will vanish without trace, others will give rise to lineages that stretch all the way to us. It is impossible to tell which is which. But that uncertainty is the beauty of evolution. It is not planned, not destined. It is an endless experiment, and every living thing is both participant and result. The steps of evolution are often invisible, too small for us to notice in the moment. But looking back, they shine as turning points. The joining of cells, the invention of sex, the rise of predators. Each was a doorway opening onto a new world. Without them, life would have remained simple, static, microscopic. With them, the oceans became a stage of innovation, a place of endless possibility. And though we cannot see their faces, we carry their legacy in our very cells. The mitochondria within us are the descendants of ancient symbionts. Our genes are the children of countless shufflings and recombinations. Our very bodies are made of cooperation of cells working together, of specializations inherited from those first multicellular pioneers. When I stand on the shore today and watch the waves crash, I remember that they once carried the first bodies, the first forms, the first experiments in being more than one. Every fish, every bird, every tree, every human is a continuation of that step. We are not separate from it. We are it billions of years later. And so the story of evolution is not only about survival, it is about creativity. Life is not content to remain what it is. It tries, it changes, it invents. And in those inventions lie the great turning points of history. The earth had given life, oceans rich with possibility. Life had answered with cooperation, with complexity, with diversity. The next step was inevitable, an explosion of forms that would fill the seas with creatures beyond imagination. But that is still to come. For now, in these early ages, I linger in wonder at the fragile yet unstoppable rise of complexity. From a single cell to many, from copies to combinations, from stillness to movement, each step is small, but together they lead to everything. And I cannot help but feel a sense of kinship with those first creatures. They did not know what they were becoming. They did not know what their experiments would create. Yet without them, there would be no forests, no stars reflected in oceans, no humans to wonder at it all. The footsteps of life are patient, but they always move forward. The oceans had prepared themselves for a long time, rehearsing in silence, building rules of cooperation, invention, and survival. And then, suddenly, as if the curtain were pulled back in a grand theater, life erupted in a spectacle unlike anything before. It was the Cambrian explosion, a surge of diversity of forms and creatures of bodies and behaviors, filling the seas with wonders never seen before. I imagine swimming through those seas 540 million years ago, the water clear and full of sunlight. Everywhere I look, life moves, rides, hunts, hides. Creatures crawl along the seabed, some armored with shells, others bristling with spines. Soft-bodied worms burrow into the sand. Trilobites march in lines across the ocean floor, their segmented bodies glinting. Strange beings drift in open water, spiky frilled, finned, each an experiment in design. The Cambrian seas must have been overwhelming. For billions of years, the oceans had been quiet, ruled by microbes and simple multicellular forms. Now, in a geological instant, nearly every major body plan appeared: sponges, mollusks, arthropods, chordates, echinoderms. It is as if life had opened a treasure chest of possibilities and poured them all into the sea at once. I drift closer to one of the most iconic creatures of this time, the trilobite. Its body is segmented, its exoskeleton hard, its eyes compound and glittering. It scuttles along the sand, leaving tiny tracks behind, feeding on debris. Trilobites will rule the seas for 270 million years, diversifying into thousands of species. Yet, here at the beginning, they are just one of many experiments. Nearby, I see Anomalocaris, the terror of the Cambrian seas. It swims with undulating flaps, its body streamlined, its front appendages curved like scythes. Its mouth is a ring of plates snapping shut like a trap. I watch it dart toward a trilobite, seizing it, crushing it, devouring it. This is not only the age of diversity, it is the age of predators. For the first time, the oceans become a battlefield of hunt and escape. Predation changes everything. It drives evolution to new heights. Creatures develop armor, spines, shells, camouflage. Eyes evolve sharper, jaws stronger, bodies swifter. The dance of predator and prey becomes the rhythm of the seas, pushing both to innovate, to survive. Yet not all is violence. Some creatures drift, gently filtering plankton from the water. Sponges anchor to rocks, pumping seawater through their bodies. Early chordates, tiny fish-like creatures, swim in schools, their notochords giving them flexibility and strength. These humble beings will one day give rise to vertebrates, to fish, to reptiles, to mammals, to us. But now, They are only one experiment among many, fragile and small. I imagine pausing on the seabed, looking around me. The world is alive with color and motion. Algae sway in the currents. Trilobites, march predators, dart soft-bodied worms writhe. The ocean floor is pocked with burrows, tracks, trails, signs of creatures moving, living, struggling. The silence of the microbial age is gone. In its place is a riot of forms, a chorus of life. What caused this explosion of diversity? Perhaps it was the rise of oxygen, fueling more complex bodies. Perhaps it was the evolution of eyes, driving competition. Perhaps it was genetic innovation, the development of Hox genes' master switches that allow bodies to form in new ways. Perhaps it was all of these combined in a perfect storm. Whatever the cause, the result was undeniable. The world was changed forever. I drift higher looking down at the Cambrian seas. They teem with life, a patchwork of ecosystems, reefs built by sponges, sea floors crawling with trilobites, open waters filled with drifting predators. Each niche is filled, each possibility explored. It is as if evolution itself has awakened, racing forward with unrestrained creativity. And yet, as always, many of these experiments will not last. Whole lineages will vanish, leaving no descendants. Strange forms, creatures with frills and spines and bizarre appendages, will disappear into extinction. But others will endure, their body plans carried forward, refined, perfected. From these oceans will come the ancestors of every major group of animals alive today. The Cambrian explosion is often called life's Big Bang, and I understand why. It is the moment when possibility became reality, when the invisible became visible, when the seas transformed into a kaleidoscope of forms. Before it, the Earth was a microbial planet. After it, it was a planet of animals. As I linger here, watching trilobites scuttle, sponges filter, chordates dart, anomalocaries hunt, I feel a deep sense of wonder. The beauty is not only in the creatures themselves, but in the process, in evolution's endless creativity, in life's determination to try to change, to persist. The Cambrian seas remind me that we too are part of this creativity. Our bodies, our eyes, our senses, our very selves are the inheritance of this explosion. When we look into the mirror, we see not only ourselves, but echoes of trilobites, of chordates, of the first creatures to crawl, to swim, to see. The story of life is no longer hidden. It is visible now, moving, breathing, competing. And the stage is set for even greater dramas, the rise of forests, the march of creatures onto land, the thunder of giants. But for now, I drift in the Cambrian seas, surrounded by life's first great symphony, and I marvel at how quickly silence can become song. The Cambrian seas had erupted with forms and colors, and over the millions of years that followed, life only grew bolder. Creatures tried new shapes, filled new spaces, spread into rivers and swarms, onto coastlines, and finally onto the dry, sunlit land. Plants took root, insects buzzed, amphibians crawled from the shallows. And then, from this restless invention, a new age rose, an age that would belong to giants. The Mesozoic, the time of dinosaurs. When I picture the Earth 230 million years ago, I see a world very different from today. The continents are not scattered, but fused into a single vast landmass, Pangaea. It stretches almost from pole to pole, an immense supercontinent surrounded by a global ocean. The interior is dry, scorched by sun, while along the coasts lush forests thrive. The air is warm, the sky is heavy with moisture storms rolling in great cycles. It is a world ripe for change. At first, the land is ruled by reptiles, small and quick darting through ferns and conifers. But among them appear creatures unlike any before dinosaurs. At first, they are not giants, but modest in size, slender, upright, swift on two legs. They hunt insects, small animals, each other. Yet in their bones lies potential. Their hips, their lungs, their posture all hint at power to come. I imagine crouching in the shadows of a Triassic forest, watching one of these early dinosaurs move. Its steps are light, its head turns sharply, its eyes alert. It is not yet a tyrant, not yet a giant, but it is different. It carries itself with balance, with agility. Around it, other reptiles scurry, but this one holds the future. As millions of years pass, dinosaurs diversify. Some grow larger, their teeth serrated, their claws sharp, becoming predators. Others lengthen their necks, broaden their bodies, turning to plants for food. They spread across Pangaea, filling niches with astonishing variety. By the Jurassic period, they dominate. I walk into a Jurassic Valley in my imagination, and the sight takes my breath away. Towering sauropods move slowly through the forest, their necks reaching high into the trees, their bodies immense, heavier than any creature that has ever lived on land. They strip leaves with gentle sweeps of their heads, their tails swinging like whips. Around their feet, smaller dinosaurs scurry, ornithopods grazing stegosaurs, bristling with plates and spikes, predators lurking in shadows. And then I see them, the great hunters. Allosaurus, with jaws, wide teeth, gleaming eyes, fixed on prey. It stalks through the ferns, muscles rippling, its steps silent despite its size. When it strikes, the valley erupts with chaos. Smaller dinosaurs scatter, sauropods, trumpet tails lash. The predator's roar fills the air. This is a world of power, of life at its most immense and dramatic. The skies too are alive. Pterosaurs wheel above their wings, stretched taut, catching thermals gliding like shadows. Some are small, darting like birds. Others are vast, their wingspans longer than buses, their beaks snapping fish from rivers. They are the first masters of the sky long before birds appear. In the seas, ichthyosaurs swim like dolphins. Plesiosaurs glide with long necks. Mosasaurs churn the depths with jaws wide enough to swallow prey whole. The oceans are as dangerous as the land, filled with predators of every shape. Nowhere is safe from the reign of reptiles. Yet even amid this power, new possibilities stir. Small feathered dinosaurs dart through undergrowth, their feathers not yet for flight, but for warmth, for display. Some leap from branch to branch, gliding short distances. From them, birds will one day rise, carrying the legacy of dinosaurs into the skies of the future. I imagine sitting beneath a conifer tree as twilight falls on a Jurassic plain. Herds of dinosaurs move in the distance, their silhouettes massive against the horizon. The air vibrates with the calls of creatures, deep and resonant, echoing across valleys. Above, pterosaurs wheel against the fading light. It is a world, alive, immense, unstoppable. But no age lasts forever. The earth is restless, and with each triumph comes shadow. At the end of the Triassic volcanic eruptions split Pangaea apart, belching gases that warmed the planet, driving many creatures to extinction. Dinosaurs survive, and with their resilience, they flourish. But the pattern is clear. Every age of life is fragile, always at the mercy of Earth itself. Through the Jurassic and into the Cretaceous, dinosaurs reach their greatest heights. Tyrannosaurs stalk the north. Raptors hunt in packs with cunning and speed. Ceratopsians display horns and frills. Hadrosaurs fill the air with calls from their resonant crests. Each lineage experiments with size, shape, color, behavior. The land is theirs, as if no other creatures will ever rise to rival them. Yet even as they dominate, the end approaches. A single asteroid, 66 million years ago, strikes Earth with the force of 1,000 nuclear bombs. I imagine the moment, skies splitting with fire, seas rising in tsunamis, forests igniting, the world plunged into darkness as dust chokes the sky. For months, years, the earth freezes. Plants wither, animals starve. The reign of dinosaurs collapses. But not all is lost. Some small feathered creatures survive, the ancestors of birds. Mammals, too, endure, small and hidden, waiting. From the ashes of giants, new forms will rise. As I stand in imagination at the edge of a smoking crater, the world silent except for wind, I feel both sorrow and awe. Sorrow for the beauty, Bode, the giants fallen. Awe for the resilience of life, its refusal to end, its readiness to begin again. The dinosaurs ruled for over 160 million years, longer than humans can yet imagine. Their bones still lie in stone, their shapes still inspire wonder. In their rise and fall, they remind us that even the greatest are bound to change, to time, to chance. And yet, they are not truly gone. Every bird that takes wing carries their legacy. Every sparrow, every eagle, every penguin is a living dinosaur. A reminder that nothing ends completely, that life always finds a way to continue. The age of giants has ended, but the story of Earth moves on. In their absence, new creatures will rise, new experiments will begin. The stage is cleared for mammals, for intelligence, for us. But before that, the Earth will write more chapters of fire and ice, of loss and renewal. For extinction is never the end, it is the turning of a page. Life on Earth is patient. It grows, it experiments, it adapts. But Earth itself is restless, and in its restlessness, life is tested again and again. For every age of abundance, there comes an age of loss. The story of life is not only one of creation, but of destruction. Mass extinctions, sudden and merciless, where whole lineages vanish in silence. Standing here in imagination, I see these dark pages unfold, and I feel the weight of fragility behind all of life's triumphs. The first great extinction I witness is at the end of the Ordovician period, 443 million years ago. The seas are alive with trilobites, brachiopods, corals, early fish. Then the climate shifts. Ice sheets expand, sea levels fall, habitats shrink. Later, warmth returns too quickly. Oxygen drops, oceans suffocate. Nearly 85% of marine species disappear. I picture reefs collapsing, once colorful and vibrant, now barren stone. Trilobites sink into silence, corals bleach and crumble. Life reels, struggling to recover. Millions of years pass, and life rebounds. Coral reefs grow again. Fish diversify, plants begin their slow march onto land. But the earth remembers how to destroy. The next great extinction comes 375 million years ago at the end of the Devonian. The seas are thick with armored fish, strange forms with jaws like traps. On land, the first forests spread their roots breaking stone, their leaves shading rivers. But this abundance carries danger. Plants draw carbon dioxide from the air, cooling the climate. Oxygen in the oceans drops, toxic conditions spread. Armored fish vanish, reefs collapse, 3/4 of all species fade. I stand at the edge of a Devonian reef in my imagination. Once it teemed with coral fish trilobites. Now it lies, silent skeletons, bleaching waters still. The silence is haunting, a reminder that innovation carries risk, that even life's triumphs can sow its downfall. But nothing compares to the end of the Permian period, 252 million years ago, the Great Dying. It begins with fire. Volcanic eruptions in Siberia release unimaginable floods of lava, ash, and gas. Carbon dioxide and methane pour into the air. The planet warms, oceans turn acidic. Oxygen disappears. Hydrogen sulfide, a deadly gas, poisons waters and air. This is not just extinction, it is devastation. I walk across a Permian plain in imagination. The sky is red with ash, the air thick with heat. Forests are burning, rivers drying, animals collapsing in waves of hunger. In the seas, trilobites vanish forever, ancient corals dissolve, 96% of marine species perish, 70% of land species disappear. Entire ecosystems vanish as if erased. It is the closest life has ever come to total annihilation. And yet, life clings on. Small survivors endure, insects in hidden burrows, reptiles adapted to harsh climates, tiny fish in shaded streams. From their persistence, new lineages will rise. But the Permian world is gone forever, replaced by something new. Two more extinctions follow. The Triassic ends million years ago in volcanic fire as Pangaea splits, filling the air with carbon, warming the world, killing half of species. Dinosaurs survive, and from this destruction they seize the earth. Then 66 million years ago, the Cretaceous ends. An asteroid slams into the Yucatan fire, and darkness follow, forests burn, oceans acidify. Dinosaurs' rulers for 160 million years fall silent. I picture standing at the edge of that crater, the air thick with smoke, the earth trembling. Trees lie charred. The sea withdraws and rushes back in waves. Thunder without storm shakes the ground. For months, the sky remains black. Photosynthesis stops. Plants die, herbivores starve. Predators follow. Only the small, the hidden, the adaptable survive. Birds rise from the ashes. Mammals endure in shadows, and the age of giants is over. Each extinction is tragedy, but also transition. What disappears clears the way for something new. Without the Devonian collapse, tetrapods might never have thrived on land. Without the great dying, dinosaurs may never have ruled. Without the asteroid, mammals may never have risen. Extinction is destruction, but also renewal, a reminder that Earth's story is written not only in survival, but in endings that create beginnings. I imagine looking at Earth from space during these extinctions. At times, the seas are pale and lifeless. At times, the continents burn. At times, ice spreads like a shroud. But always after silence, green returns, coral rebuilds, creatures crawl again. Life is fragile, but it is also relentless. It bends but does not break. As I stand in thought at the close of this chapter, I feel a deep humility. We humans live in the shadow of these extinctions. Our very existence is owed to them. If the asteroid had missed, dinosaurs might still rule, and we might never have been. We are children of chance of destruction and survival. And so the lesson of mass extinctions is clear. Nothing is guaranteed. No empire of life is eternal. Earth does not play favorites. The mighty and the meek, the giants and the small, all are subject to its storms, its fires, its rocks from the sky. Life survives not because it is destined, but because it is adaptable, persistent, willing to change. Extinctions are the dark brushstrokes in Earth's painting. Without them, the picture would not be what it is. In their silence, new songs are born. In their ashes, new worlds grow. And as I turn to the next age in the story, I carry with me the echo of endings, the reminder that life's beauty is fragile, and that survival is never owed, only earned. When the last echoes of the asteroid strike faded, when the fires burned out and the skies cleared, the earth was a different place. The giants were gone. The dinosaurs' rulers for more than 160 million years had fallen silent. The seas no longer churned with mosasaurs. The skies no longer wheeled with pterosaurs. The forests no longer thundered with tyrants and sauropods. What remained was emptiness, silence, and opportunity. In the ashes of this great extinction, survivors crept from shadows. Small, unassuming creatures, unnoticed when dinosaurs reigned, now stepped into a world wide open. They were mammals, warm-blooded, fur-covered, secretive beings who had endured for more than 100 million years in burrows in trees, in darkness, beneath the very feet of giants. For so long, they had been background players. Now they would take the stage. I imagine kneeling beside a log in the first days after the cataclysm. The forest floor is littered with ash. The trees are thin. The air smells of charcoal and damp soil. From beneath the log scurries a small creature no larger than a rat. Its fur is singed at the tips, its eyes wide alert. It sniffs the air, darts out, grabs a beetle, and disappears back into the shadows. This is the future. Fragile, trembling, but alive. Mammals had always been survivors. Their warm blood let them endure cold nights. Their fur shielded them from climate shifts. Their small size required less food, and many could eat almost anything. Insects, seeds, fruit, meat. They hid in burrows. They nested in trees. They traveled under cover of night while dinosaurs roared in daylight. These traits, once only for survival, now became strengths for expansion. And expand they did. In the Paleocene epoch, the world filled with mammals of many kinds. Small insect eaters scurried through underbrush, fruit eaters climbed trees, scavengers picked through carrion. Over time, some grew larger, filling niches left vacant by the dinosaurs. I imagine walking across an early Paleocene plain, watching herds of small, hooved mammals graze predators no larger than foxes, stalking them, bats fluttering overhead, rodents darting through grass. The world is quieter than the Mesozoic, but alive, rebuilding. By the Eocene epoch, 56 million years ago, the mammals had begun to flourish in earnest. Forests spread across much of the planet, warm and lush. Strange forms evolved: early horses no larger than dogs with toes instead of hooves. Massive flightless birds, towering over men, preying on smaller creatures. Primates with grasping hands, leaping from branch to branch. The seas too shifted. Whales began their story here, small four-legged creatures that hunted fish along shores, then slowly adapted to life in water, their legs shrinking their tails, broadening their bodies, streamlining. I imagine watching an early whale, half dog, half dolphin, splash into the surf, its lineage destined for the deep. Predators rose as well. Creodons, fierce and muscular, hunted across the land. Some were wolf-like, others lion-sized, their jaws wide and crushing. They ruled for millions of years before giving way to true carnivores, the ancestors of today's cats, dogs, bears, and seals. I can almost hear their growls in the Eocene forests, their footfalls soft, but certain their hunger, shaping the herds they hunted. In South America, marsupials diversified, filling roles elsewhere taken by placental mammals. Saber-toothed predators, giant wombat-like grazers, tree-dwellers with prehensile tails, each continent became a world of its own, experimenting with forms. Australia, isolated, filled with marsupials that would one day become kangaroos, koalas, and wombats. By the Oligocene, climates shifted, forests thinned, and grasslands spread. Hooved mammals adapted quickly, their teeth tougher for grinding grass, their legs longer for running across open plains. Horses grew larger, their toes reducing to hooves. Rhinoceroses, camels, antelope-like forms filled the savannas. Elephants began as small tusked creatures, later swelling into giants with trunks. In the trees, primates grew more diverse, their brains larger, their hands more skillful. I imagine walking through an Oligocene plain, tall grass rippling in wind, herds of horses, galloping in rhythm, predators giving chase. Dust rises, the air trembles with pounding hooves, the circle of predator and prey plays out in endless repetition. This is a world of speed, of endurance, of survival, honed by open land. By the Miocene, 23 million years ago, mammals truly ruled. The earth was theirs in number, size, and diversity. Grasslands stretched across continents, grazers filled them in herds of thousands, predators honed their speed and cunning. Cats evolved sharper claws, dogs longer legs, elephants greater size. Whales became giants of the seas, their songs echoing across oceans. Apes flourished in forests, swinging through canopies, their eyes intelligent, their hands skilled. The Miocene was also an age of titans. Gigantic rhinos, taller than giraffes, browsed on treetops. Ground sloths the size of elephants lumbered in South America. Saber-toothed stalked with fangs like daggers. Mammoths and mastodons roamed in vast herds, shaping landscapes with their tusks. The scale of life was immense, rivaling the giants of the dinosaur age. though different in form. And yet, through all this, the primates slowly advanced. From small, tree-dwelling creatures came larger apes with sharper minds and stronger social bonds. They learned to use tools to share food, to move together. Their brains expanded, their hands refined. They were not yet human, but the path was opening. As I stand in imagination in a Miocene forest, I watch a group of early apes resting in branches. One cracks a nut with a stone, another grooms its companion. A young one swings clumsily from a branch. Their calls echo in the canopy, their eyes alert curious. They do not know it, but they carry the seeds of something profound. The rise of mammals was not inevitable, but it was relentless once begun. They filled every space, adapted to every climate, invented endless forms. From rodents to whales, from shrews to elephants, from bats to apes, they proved life's greatest strength, adaptability. When the dinosaurs fell, mammals did not just survive, they transformed the earth. And I cannot help but feel awe at this journey. From small shivering survivors, hiding in shadows, they became rulers of land, sea and sky. Their diversity is staggering, their resilience inspiring. And among them, quietly, a lineage was forming that would one day stand, walk, and wonder. The world of mammals is a prelude, a stage on which the drama of humanity will unfold. But before that story begins, there is still much to see. Ice ages to endure, titans to rise and fall, landscapes to reshape. The earth is far from finished with its experiments. And so, I walk away from this chapter with gratitude for the persistence of small creatures, for the chance events that spared them, for the resilience that carried them forward. Without them, there would be no us. The age of mammals is the age of possibility, and in their rise I glimpse the faint outlines of our own story beginning to take shape. The world shifted once more. Warm forests that had stretched across continents began to retreat. The air cooled and ice spread from the poles like great advancing armies. The Pleistocene epoch had arrived, and with it came the age of ice. For millions of years, glaciers marched forward and pulled back again in cycles, carving valleys, shaping mountains, remaking rivers. Life on Earth faced trials of cold scarcity and endless change. I imagine standing at the edge of one of these glaciers. Before me towers a wall of ice, gleaming blue and white, stretching as far as the horizon. The air is sharp, biting against my skin, the silence broken only by the crack and groan of ice shifting. Behind me, winds sweep across plains, carrying dust and snow. It is a world sculpted by cold, vast and harsh, and yet alive. The mammals that had risen after the dinosaurs were tested as never before. Some failed, vanishing into extinction. But many endured, adapting to cold, to scarcity, to shifting landscapes. This was the time of megafauna, giant mammals that grew large to survive the chill. Their thick coats and heavy bodies marrying them through winters that seemed unending. I walk across a frozen plain in imagination, and herds surround me. Mammoths trudge in lines, their shaggy fur rippling in the wind, their curved tusks sweeping snow aside to uncover grass beneath. Beside them, woolly rhinoceroses graze, their horns lowered against the cold. Reindeer move in restless herds, their hooves crunching ice, their breath steaming in the air. Above, great eagles circle, watching for weakness below. Predators stalk these herds with relentless precision. Saber-toothed cats crouch in the snow, their long fangs gleaming as they prepare to strike. Cave lions, larger than any lions alive today, hunt in packs, driving prey into traps of ice and cliff. Hyenas, wolves and bears roam the land, scavenging, hunting, surviving on what they can find. I hear their calls echo across the plains, carried by wind, a reminder that in the age of ice survival is never guaranteed. In caves and sheltered valleys, smaller creatures endure. Rodents burrow beneath snow bats, hibernate in clusters, foxes slip across frozen rivers on light feet. The diversity is still rich, though hidden, each species finding its own strategy against the cold. Some migrate with the seasons, following warmth and food. Others grow thicker coats, store fat, or hibernate through the long winters. The cycles of ice shape not only animals, but the land itself. Glaciers grind mountains into valleys, push rivers into new courses, leave behind plains of fertile soil. When the ice retreats, grasslands spread wide, feeding vast herds. When the ice advances again, forests shrink, animals are driven to adapt or die. It is a constant rhythm of advance and retreat, challenge and renewal. Amid this struggle, a new lineage of mammals quietly grows, more capable primates. In Africa's shifting landscapes, apes evolve, some remaining in forests, others venturing into grasslands. Climate fluctuations push them to walk more often on two legs, freeing their hands for carrying for tools for new possibilities. I imagine a group of early hominins on a savanna, the ice far to the north, the air dry and warm. They walk upright, their eyes scanning the horizon, stones clutched in their hands. They are small, vulnerable, yet their minds are sharper, their cooperation stronger. The ice ages test them too. Droughts come, forests vanish, prey migrates. They learn to adapt, not with thicker fur or sharper claws, but with thought, with ingenuity. They shape stones into tools, break bones for marrow, share food within groups. Their survival is not guaranteed by strength alone, but by flexibility, by learning, by passing knowledge from one to another. Back in the north, I watch mammoths crossing frozen rivers, their calves pressed between adults for warmth. I hear the trumpeting of their calls, deep and resonant, rolling across icy plains. They are majestic, but I know their time is limited. As the climate shifts again, as humans spread, their numbers dwindle. One by one, the titans of the Ice Age will fall. Mammoths, mastodons, saber-toothed cats, giant ground sloths, woolly rhinoceroses. The age of giants ends not with an asteroid this time, but with a slower, quieter retreat. And yet, in their passing, humans rise. The same cycles of ice that destroy also create shaping landscapes where humans thrive, forcing adaptations that hone intelligence. Cooperation, resilience. Fire is mastered, shelters built, languages born. The ice that threatened extinction instead sharpens survival into something new, something that will transform the planet. I imagine sitting by a fire with early humans as snow falls outside a cave. Sparks rise into darkness, shadows flicker on stone walls. Their faces glow with warmth, their hands busy with tools, their voices murmuring in the first traces of language. Beyond the cave, wolves howl, mammoths move like shadows, the cold presses in. But within, there is warmth, there is cooperation, there is hope. The story of the Ice Ages is not only one of struggle, It is one of transformation. The cold tested life, and life answered with fur, with fat, with migration, with hibernation, with thought, with fire. Each adaptation is a story of persistence, each survival a victory. As I stand at the edge of a glacier in my imagination, I realize how much of our own story is carved in ice. The valleys we live, in the rivers we drink from the soil we farm, all are shaped by glaciers long gone. The very path of humanity was guided by these cycles, pushing us to adapt, to think, to become more than we were. The earth, restless as ever, taught us in cold and scarcity that survival is never easy, never certain. But it also showed us that from hardship comes growth, from struggle comes innovation. The glaciers will retreat again, leaving behind new worlds for life to fill. But the lessons of the ice remain etched in stone, in soil, in memory. Life endures not by resisting change, but by embracing it. And as I walk away from this frozen chapter, I feel the weight of resilience. The ice was harsh, but it shaped us. Without it, we might never have risen. With it, we learned to survive, to think, to dream. The age of ice was not the end, but the beginning of something new, the dawn of humanity's story. The ice had carved the earth into valleys, plains, and rivers, shaping both the land and the lives that walked upon it. Out of that harshness came a creature unlike any before. Upright, curious, restless, our ancestors began their journey. They were not yet us, not yet the humans we see in the mirror, but their footsteps marked the beginning of a story that would one day reach every corner of the world. I imagine standing on an African savanna 3 million years ago. The air is dry, the grass tall, the horizon wide. Herds of antelope graze in the distance. Lions lurk in shadows. Elephants move slowly across the plains. And among them, small groups of hominins walk upright, their hands free, their eyes scanning the land. They are vulnerable, slower than predators, weaker than giants. Yet they hold something new: awareness, adaptability, the beginnings of thought that stretches beyond instinct. Their bodies tell the story of change. From apes, they inherited grasping hands and keen eyes. But their spines straighten, their legs lengthen, their pelvis narrows. They walk on 2 feet, balancing with surprising grace. This frees their hands to carry food, to throw stones, to hold one another. Their brains are larger than their ape cousins, though still small by our standards. Yet within those brains sparks ignite. I picture a woman among them, bending to pick up a sharp stone. She turns it in her hand, testing its edge. With a strike against another rock, she chips it into a crude blade. It cuts into bark scrapes, meat from bone. She shows another, and the knowledge spreads. The first tools, simple, rough, but revolutionary. For the first time, thought shapes stone, and stone shapes survival. Fire follows. At first it is fear, a blaze set by lightning crackling through dry grass, driving animals in panic. But soon curiosity wins. Flames warm the night, cook meat, ward off predators. I imagine a group huddled around fire, for the first time their faces glowing orange, their eyes wide with awe. Sparks leap upward into darkness, and with them rises a new kind of security. Fire is not only warmth, it is light protection possibility. Language too begins here. Not yet words as we know them, but sounds, gestures, glances. A warning cry, a pointing hand, a shared rhythm of movement. Slowly, these grow richer. Meanings deepen, memories are shared, plans are made. With language comes cooperation, and with cooperation comes strength. Hominins spread across Africa, following rivers hunting game, gathering roots and fruit. Generations pass, and species rise and fall. Australopithecus, Paranthropus, Homo habilis, Homo erectus. Each carries the torch a little farther. Their brains grow larger, their tools more refined, their movements more daring. Homo erectus leaves Africa walking into Asia and Europe, their fires burning in caves, their tools cutting into bone and hide. I imagine following them through a narrow valley, the air crisp with morning chill. They walk in small bands, carrying spears of sharpened wood, their steps steady. They hunt together, drive prey into traps, share meat around fire. Their lives are hard, their dangers many, but their endurance is unmatched. For nearly 2 million years, Homo erectus thrives, adapting to climates from Africa's savannas to Asia's forests. They are wanderers, and in them I see the first reflection of the global species we would become. Time passes, and new forms arise. Neanderthals emerge in Europe and Western Asia, stocky, powerful, adapted to cold. I picture them in icy valleys, clothed in furs, their fires blazing against the dark. They craft tools with skill, hunt mammoths, with courage, bury their dead with care. Their eyes are keen, their lives harsh, but they are not so different from us. Their voices echo in caves, their hands paint shapes on stone. Their hearts know kinship and loss. In Africa, another lineage grows, the one that will become us. Homo sapiens. Our brains expand further, our faces become lighter, our creativity surges. I imagine standing beside one of the first humans 200,000 years ago. Their gaze meets mine, and in those eyes I see recognition. They are like me, and I am like them. The gap between past and present narrows. With Homo sapiens comes art ritual imagination. In caves, hands press against walls, leaving red and black outlines. Animals are painted in motion, herds of bison, lines of horses, spirits of the hunt. Symbols emerge carrying meanings beyond the moment. Stories are told by firelight myths, born traditions past. The world is no longer only survival. It is memory, belief, hope. And then begins the great journey. From Africa, bands of humans set out crossing deserts, mountain seas. Some walk into the Middle East, others into Asia, Europe, Australia, eventually the Americas. Step by step, they spread across the globe, carrying fire tools, language, art. They meet other humans along the way, Neanderthals, Denisovans, and sometimes they fight. Sometimes they love, leaving traces of shared blood in our DNA today. I imagine watching a small group cross a strait on simple rafts, stars guiding them, winds carrying them. Behind them lies Africa, their birthplace. Ahead lies the unknown new lands, new challenges, new stories. Their courage is astonishing. No maps, no certainty, only the trust that their steps will carry them forward. With each migration, humans adapt. In the north, they clothe themselves in furs, build shelters, hunt reindeer and mammoths. In the tropics, they fish, gather fruit, craft boats. In mountains, they carve paths through stone. In deserts, they find water hidden beneath sand. No other creature adapts so fully, so quickly. It is not strength that carries them, but imagination, cooperation, resilience. As I walk in our lot beside these first humans, I feel both awe and humility. They are fragile, their numbers few, their dangers many. Yet they endure. With fire, with stone, with language, with song, they create a story greater than themselves. The first footsteps of humanity are not only ours, they are echoes of every ancestor before every experiment of life that made us possible. In their survival, in their courage, in their wonder, they carry forward the story of Earth itself. And as I watch their fires flicker on distant hills, I know that their journey has only begun. The footsteps of our ancestors had carried them across the world. They had learned to shape stone, to kindle fire, to paint on cave walls, to tell stories by flickering flames. For tens of thousands of years, they lived as wanderers, hunters and gatherers, moving with the seasons, following the herds, listening to rivers and stars. Yet, in time, a change began. The earth itself shifted in climate. The ice withdrew, forests spread, rivers swelled. And in those fertile places, humans planted the first seeds of something new: civilization. I imagine standing on the banks of the Euphrates 10,000 years ago. The river swells in spring, carrying silt from mountains, leaving behind rich soil. Small groups of people gather along its edge, not only to hunt or fish, but to plant. With careful hands, they place grains into the earth: barley, wheat, lentils. They watch the seasons, the sun, the rain. Months later, green stalks rise from the soil, carrying food more reliable than the chase of game. With agriculture, the wandering slows. Villages form fires, burn in hearths year-round. Children grow in one place. The invention of farming is quiet, almost invisible at first, but it transforms everything. Fields require care tools, require crafting harvests, require storage. From clay, humans shape pots to hold grain. From reeds, they weave baskets. From stone, they sharpen plows. Cooperation deepens. Families join into clans, clans into villages. Work is divided. Rules are agreed upon. Leaders emerge. I walk through an early village in my imagination. Mud brick houses line narrow paths. Smoke curls from hearths. Goats bleat in pens. Children chase one another through dust, while adults bend in fields or shape tools. It is modest, fragile, but it is permanent. A sense of belonging grows here, stronger than the hunt, deeper than the fire home. With settlement comes surplus, and with surplus comes trade. One village grows barley, another raises sheep, another crafts pottery. Paths form between them, carrying goods, stories, ideas. The first marketplaces appear simple gatherings where goods are exchanged, where strangers meet not as enemies, but as partners. And as villages grow, they swell into towns, and towns into cities. Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, China, each cradles civilization in its rivers. Irrigation channels spread like veins through fields. Temples rise from earth walls, enclose communities. Cities bring both wealth and conflict. Rulers claim authority. Armies form, wars begin. Civilization is not only food and shelter, but power and ambition. I picture standing in Uruk, one of the first true cities. Its walls rise tall, its streets filled with traders, priests, craftsmen. In the temple at its heart, priests offer grain and cattle to gods. In workshops, potters spin clay metalworkers, hammer bronze scribes, press marks into clay tablets. This is no longer only survival. This is culture. Writing is born here not in poetry, but in lists. Accounts of grain records, of trade tallies of offerings. Yet from these marks grows the foundation of literature law memory. Civilization spreads like rivers branching from a source. In Egypt, the Nile floods each year, feeding fields, raising monuments of stone pyramids, obelisks, temples that stretch toward the sky. I imagine watching workers haul blocks under the desert sun, chanting in rhythm, their sweat dark on the sand. The pharaoh's image gleams in gold, his rule carved in hieroglyphs. Egypt is both eternal and fragile, bound to the rise and fall of its river. In the Indus Valley, cities rise with order streets laid in grids, drains carrying water granaries, storing harvests. Their script, still unread by us, marks, seals pressed into clay. I imagine their markets alive with spice cloth tools, their homes shaded with courtyards, their wells cool and deep. They trade with Mesopotamia, their ships carrying goods across seas. In China, along the Yellow River, millet fields spread, villages grow, dynasties begin. Bronze is cast into vessels, rituals honor ancestors, but mouths of rammed earth rise against enemies. I see their farmers bending in fields, their rulers standing in palaces, their philosophers already shaping thoughts of harmony and order. And in the Americas, maize grows in fertile valleys, llamas are herded in high plains mounds, rise from earth, marking centers of community. Across oceans, far from Mesopotamia, the same story unfolds, humans settling, planting, building, dreaming. Civilization is not only food and walls, but belief. Temples rise in every culture. Priests chant prayers. Offerings burn gods are carved into stone. From the mysteries of sky and river, humans craft meaning stories of creation, of afterlife, of destiny. I imagine standing in a temple as incense curls upward, voices chant, drums beat. The air is thick with smoke and reverence. Civilization carries not only grain, but gods. With gods come laws. To live in villages and cities among strangers, rules must be made. Leaders inscribe laws on tablets, declare punishments, demand obedience. Justice becomes written and not only spoken. Kings rule not by strength alone, but by decree, by armies, by divine claim. Civilization builds order, and with order comes hierarchy, power, inequality. Some live in palaces, others in huts. Some eat from gold, others from clay. Civilization is beauty and cruelty woven together. And yet, with all its struggles, civilization brings wonders. Architecture rises, ziggurats, pyramids, palaces, walls. Art flourishes, pottery, painted statues, carved songs sung in marketplaces. Writing blossoms into epic tales of Gilgamesh, seeking immortality of gods, shaping floods of heroes and battles. I imagine a scribe by lamplight pressing symbols into clay, his words carrying across centuries to me. Civilization invents memory beyond living breath. Trade binds the world tighter. Lapis from Afghanistan glitters in Mesopotamian jewelry. Tin from far lands mixes with copper to make bronze. Spices cloth animals. Ideas all flow along paths that stretch farther each generation. The Silk Road is not yet born, but its spirit already moves through caravans and ships. Standing in imagination amid these early civilizations, I feel wonder and unease. Here humans rise beyond survival, shaping landscapes, raising monuments, writing laws, telling stories. Yet here too, humans learn to enslave, to wage war, to divide. Civilization magnifies our brilliance and our brutality alike. And so the first cities glow like stars in Earth's history. Their fires burn, their walls rise, their voices echo. They will fall as all things do, but their memory endures in stone inscript in us. As I walk away from these ancient streets in thought, I know that the story is far from over. Civilization has begun, but it will spread, clash, collapse, and rise again. Empires will be born, philosophies written, technologies discovered. From the first seed planted in soil, the path has stretched to a world forever changed. The age of wandering is over. The age of civilization has begun. Civilization had taken root in the soil of rivers and valleys, rising in villages, swelling into towns, spreading into cities. But humans are never content to remain still. With surplus came ambition. With walls came armies, with kings came dreams of dominion. Villages had birthed order. Now order gave birth to empires. I imagine standing on a dusty road in Mesopotamia, the sun burning the earth, caravans creaking with goods. Above the horizon, walls rise higher than I can see, their bricks sun-baked, their gates towering, carved with lions and gods. Inside the city thrums with power, scribes hunched over tablets, merchants haggling, soldiers drilling, priests chanting in temples. But beyond these walls, kings look outward. Rivers are not enough. Fields are not enough. Ambition spills across frontiers. The Akkadians march, first banners whipping in desert wind. Their warriors harden their rulers, declaring themselves chosen of gods. They conquer, Sumer binding city after city into the first empire. I walk among them in thought, hearing shouts in strange tongues, the clash of bronze blades, the cries of captives. Their empire does not last, but it sets a pattern that humans will not be satisfied with. Borders they will push, conquer, absorb. From these roots rise Babylon and Assyria. I picture Babylon's ziggurat climbing into the sky, its gardens green and dripping with water, its streets alive with traders from distant lands. Hammurabi inscribes his laws on stone declaring justice, order, power. In Assyria, armies march with iron weapons siege, engines batter walls, their cruelty feared across continents. Their kings carve victories into stone boasting of lands, subdued people enslaved. Empire is glory, but empire is also terror. Egypt too reaches outward. Along the Nile, pharaohs raise armies, clash with Hittites, claim dominion from desert to sea. Their temples are filled with gold from Nubia, their chariots thunder across battlefields. I stand in their courts, hearing chants of scribes, the whispers of generals, the weight of ambition. Farther east in the Indus Valley, cities fade, but in their place new powers stir. In China, dynasties rise and fall, the Shang with their bronze, the Zhou with their mandate of heaven. I imagine standing in an early Chinese court where kings burn sacrifices to ancestors, where oracles carve bones with questions, where armies form in discipline, already dreaming of uniting vast lands under one rule. And in the Mediterranean, seeds of empire are planted. The Greeks rise with city-states small yet fierce, their warriors clad in bronze, their ships cutting through seas. They war with one another. Athens, Sparta, Thebes, but in their struggle, they sharpen politics, philosophy, art. From their clashes with Persia, I see not only blood, but the birth of democracy, of ideas that will echo through centuries. Rome follows a city on 7 hills, first a republic, then an empire. I imagine walking through its forum, hearing senators argue, soldiers march, citizens cheer. Legions spread outward, disciplined, relentless, carrying aqueducts, roads, laws, language. From Britain to Egypt, from Spain to Mesopotamia, Rome's shadow stretches. But its shadow is both gift and burden, order and oppression, civilization and conquest entwined. I think of the Silk Road opening, caravans winding across deserts, ships braving seas. Empires connect, trade flourishes, cultures blend. Chinese silk in Roman markets, Indian spices in Persian courts, Greek statues in far-off temples. Ideas travel with goods, religions, philosophies, sciences, changing as they pass from hand to hand. The world grows smaller, tighter bound in threads of empire. Yet conquest always leaves scars. I imagine walking through a city after it has fallen, walls broken, homes burning, captives weeping. For every empire that rises, another bleeds. And still humans build again. From ashes, new powers emerge, Persia under Cyrus and Darius, India under Maurya and Gupta, China under Qin and Han. Each declares itself eternal, yet each in time crumbles. Empire teaches us ambition, but also impermanence. The Assyrians thought their cruelty would secure them forever, yet they fell. Rome thought its roads would bind the world, yet it fractured. China proclaimed the mandate of heaven, yet dynasties turned. No power endures untouched by time. And yet, amid conquest, human brilliance shines. In Babylon, astronomers chart the stars. In Greece, philosophers question existence. In India, sages teach of karma and dharma. In China, Confucius writes of virtue, Lao Tzu of harmony. In Rome, engineers build arches that stand for millennia. Empire brings suffering, but also sparks knowledge, invention, memory. Standing in imagination among these empires, I feel both awe and sorrow. Their monuments still stand, their ideas still live, their languages still echo in ours. But their wars still bleed through time, their conquests still remind us of our hunger for dominion. Civilization has grown vast, but also heavy with ambition. The age of empires is not the end. It is another turning. Their rise and fall shape the world. Their legacies linger. They carve the stage upon which new stories will unfold, of religion spreading, of knowledge blossoming, of darkness and light trading places. And as I walk away from their thrones in thought, I remember that empire is both creation and destruction. It is our glory and our warning. The world is now connected by armies, by trade, by roads, by seas. And in this web, humanity is ready for its next chapter. An age not only of kings and generals, but of faith, of learning, of light and shadow. Empires had risen with walls and armies, but empires alone cannot fill the soul. In the spaces carved by conquest and trade, humanity began to ask deeper questions. Who are we? Why do we suffer? What lies beyond death? From rivers, deserts, mountains, and monasteries, voices rose carrying faith, knowledge, and wisdom across continents. The age of armies was joined by an age of belief and thought, and in their meeting, humanity became more than conquerors. We became seekers. I imagine standing in a quiet valley in northern India more than 2,000 years ago. Beneath a tree, a man sits in silence. His name is Siddhartha, later called the Buddha. Around him, disciples gather listening as he speaks of suffering and its end, of mindfulness, of compassion. His words spread first on foot, then on parchment, then along trade routes. Carried by monks across mountains and seas, Buddhism moves from India to China to Korea to Japan, reshaping cultures far from its birthplace. In temple courtyards, I hear chants echo through incense smoke bells, ringing with a calm that crosses centuries. Not far away in time and space, other voices rise. In the Middle East, prophets speak of one God commanding justice and mercy. From Abraham's covenant flows Judaism rooted in scripture, resilient in exile. From Jesus' teachings flows Christianity, spreading first among fishermen and shepherds, then through cities and empires, carried by apostles and martyrs. From Muhammad's revelation flows Islam, uniting tribes into faith, its call to prayer echoing across deserts, its scholars preserving and expanding knowledge. These religions bind billions, shaping laws, art, architecture, and imagination. I walk in, thought through Jerusalem's streets, hearing prayers in Hebrew, Greek, Arabic, Latin, layer upon layer of devotion. I stand in a mosque's courtyard, the call to prayer soaring over minarets, faithful bowing in rhythm. I step into a cathedral, light streaming through stained glass, voices rising in song. I sit by a river where Hindu priests chant verses older than cities, offering flowers to flowing water. Faith in all its forms is not only belief, it is community identity, hope. With faith comes conflict. Crusades march across continents, holy wars burn cities, empires rise under banners of gods. But with faith also comes dialogue, exchange, and art. Pilgrims travel roads not only to fight, but to pray, to learn, to meet. Cathedrals rise in Europe, pagodas in Asia, mosques across Africa, each lifting human hands and eyes toward heaven. And alongside faith flows knowledge. In Alexandria's library, scrolls gather wisdom from Greece, Egypt, India. Scholars debate astronomy, medicine, philosophy. In Baghdad's House of Wisdom, texts are translated from Greek to Arabic, from Sanskrit to Persian. Algebra, medicine, optics, and astronomy flourish. I imagine sitting in a study as oil lamps glow, scribes copying texts by hand, their ink carrying thought across generations. The Silk Road becomes more than trade. It is a bridge of minds. Chinese silk travels west, but so does paper, gunpowder, the compass. From India flows mathematics from the Middle East, astronomy and medicine from Greece, philosophy and logic. In return, ideas return eastward, enriched, reshaped. Travelers like Ibn Battuta and Marco Polo walk these paths, their stories weaving continents together. I picture a caravan in the Gobi Desert, camels laden with silk spices manuscripts. Merchants haggle, monks chant, soldiers guard. By night, under endless stars, they share stories of gods, kings, and lands unseen. Knowledge moves with them as precious as gold. In monasteries across Europe, monks copy manuscripts preserving Aristotle, Plato, Galen. In Islamic schools, scholars refine medicine chart, the heavens invent algebra. In Chinese courts, officials map the stars, track comets, devise printing. In Indian temples, mathematicians shape zero-infinity equations that will guide science millennia later. Knowledge is no longer the gift of one land, but of many flowing together like rivers into a vast sea. And in this age of meeting art blossoms, I imagine walking through a bazaar in Samarkand, colors blazing Persian carpets, Chinese porcelain, Indian spices, African ivory. Poets recite verses, musicians play lutes, dancers whirl. Each voice carries the rhythm of its homeland, yet together they form a chorus larger than any one people. Still, this was no age of peace alone. Empires clash. Mongol riders thunder across steppes, cities burn, yet, even in conquest, knowledge survives. Mongols fierce in battle, carry trade across Eurasia, linking lands in ways unseen before. Marco Polo reaches China, returns with tales of riches and wonders. Ideas, even when carried by fire, take root. Religion, knowledge, art, all meet in this age, and humanity grows not only larger, but deeper. For the first time, we do not only survive, we question, we imagine, we record, we build for eternity. Standing at the crossroad of this era in imagination, I feel the pulse of humanity. Faiths rise like mountains, knowledge flows like rivers, cultures meet like winds. We are no longer isolated tribes. We are one species, bound in connection, in conflict, in creation. The world has grown smaller, but its ideas have grown vast. The seeds of modern science, philosophy, and religion are planted here. They will grow, twist, clash, and bloom, shaping centuries yet to come. And as I leave these crossroads in thought, I know the story moves toward both brilliance and shadow. The light of knowledge will burn, but so too will wars and plagues. Humanity's next chapter will test whether what we have built in spirit and mind can endure the storms of history. The crossroads of faith and knowledge had bound the world tighter than ever before. And from that weaving of cultures, from the questions carried across deserts and seas, humanity stepped into a new dawn. This dawn was not carved by kings or priests alone, but by thinkers, dreamers, rebels, those who dared to look at the world not only through tradition, but through reason. The age of empires and religions flowed into the age of ideas, and the world was never the same. I imagine walking through a European city in the Renaissance, its streets bustling with merchants, its workshops alive with invention. Painters lean over canvases, capturing not only saints, but the human body itself in detail never seen before. Architects lift domes toward the sky, their arches balanced with mathematical grace. Printers run their presses, ink-staining fingers, words spreading faster than armies. Knowledge once confined to temples and courts now belongs to all who can read. The Enlightenment follows a blaze of reason. I picture coffee houses filled with debate philosophers arguing over liberty, scientists demonstrating experiments, revolutionaries whispering of change. The telescope reveals moons circling Jupiter. The microscope reveals worlds within drops of water. The laws of gravity tie Earth to heaven in one sweep of thought. Humanity learns that the universe is not chaos, but order, not mystery, but pattern. And from these ideas flow revolutions. Across oceans, colonies rise against kings. In France, peasants storm prisons declaring liberty, equality, fraternity. In Haiti, enslaved people overthrow their masters, demanding freedom. The age of subjects bends toward the age of citizens, though not without blood. I walk through these crowds in imagination, hearing chants, gunfire, speeches, the air thick with smoke and hope. Then comes the hum of machines. The Industrial Revolution reshapes the world more than any army ever could. Steam engines pound, looms clatter, railroads cut across continents. Cities swell with smoke and sweat, factories roar with labor, goods flow faster than rivers. Wealth grows, but so does poverty. Child labor, slums, pollution. Humanity has gained power, but struggles to master its cost. I stand in a factory soot, darkening the air, machines, hammering workers bent in rhythm. Their faces are tired, their hands rough, yet their work builds railroads, ships, bridges, telegraphs. The world is smaller now, bound not only by caravans, but by wires and steam. Science races forward. Electricity sparks light in the night. Medicine discovers germs, anesthesia, vaccines. Darwin writes of evolution, tying humanity to all life, rewriting our place in nature. Einstein bends space and time, atoms split into fire brighter than the sun. Humanity begins to master forces once thought divine, but mastery comes with shadow. Cannons roar, rifles crack, bombs fall. World wars sweep continents, trenches fill with mud, and blood cities burn from the sky. I walk through a ruined street rubble where homes once stood, silence where children once played. Empires crumble in these wars, and nations rise and fall with violence. Yet even in ashes, humanity rebuilds. The United Nations forms voices, call for rights. Colonies gain independence. Civil rights movements march. The world struggles toward justice, halting, imperfect but real. And then comes the digital age. I imagine sitting before a glowing screen, words traveling instantly across oceans, voices connecting from every land. Knowledge once bound in scrolls, then in books, now flows freely in invisible streams. Satellites circle above, carrying signals, images, voices. Humanity has built not only cities, but networks, threads binding billions into one conversation. Space itself becomes our horizon. Rockets thunder into sky, astronauts walk on the moon, probes fly beyond planets. I stand on a launch pad in thought, the ground trembling as engines ignite, a roar shaking the air. The rocket rises, carrying with it more than metal. It carries wonder, ambition, questions of who we are in the vastness. And still, Earth remains our home. Forests are cut, rivers dammed, ice melts, species vanish. Our power is vast, but so is our responsibility. I imagine walking through a rainforest hearing chainsaws, where once birds sang feeling heat, where once shade cooled. Civilization has triumphed, but at what cost? The challenge of the modern age is not conquest, but balance between growth and care, between progress and preservation. Now, as I stand in imagination in the present, I see humanity at a threshold. We are billions spread across every continent, connected in seconds, armed with knowledge and weapons that can create or destroy on scales unimaginable. We can cure disease, explore stars, share art with the world, but we can also burn forests, wage wars, poison oceans. Our future is unwritten, fragile, waiting for our choices. And I wonder, are we only another chapter destined to fall as empires fell, or are we the first to know enough to see enough to change the ending? The story of Earth has carried us from molecules to microbes, from trilobites to tyrants, from hunters to astronauts. And now it carries us into a question: what will we become? Perhaps one day we will walk on Mars, our fires burning on another world. Perhaps one day we will cure all disease, or build machines that think beyond us, or merge with them. Perhaps one day we will vanish, leaving only ruins and echoes. The future is open, uncertain, as it always has been. What I know is this: the story is not finished. It is ours to tell, ours to shape, ours to carry forward. From the first spark of life to this very moment, the earth has whispered to us: adapt, endure, imagine. If we listen, perhaps we will not only survive, but thrive. And so, as I close this journey, I return to the beginning, to oceans stirred by storms, to molecules dancing in pools, to sparks of life unseen. From there to here, across billions of years, across extinctions and empires, across ice and fire we have walked. We are the children of Earth, the heirs of its patience, the makers of its future. The story of Earth is vast, humbling, and beautiful. And though this chapter ends, the next waits for us to write.